Okay, this video is called How People Learn, and where I got the idea from this is these artificial intelligence companies have been contacting me. And one of the most recent contacts is they're asking me, can you please help us to train AI, to help AI be able to learn more like the way a person learns? And you know what? I haven't even responded to them. They're just sending me emails because, I've heard a lot of bad things about AI. People have told me they did some project with AI and then AI stole their information, stole their book or stole something else from them. And it was a bad experience for them. So I don't want to formally get involved with them, but it got me thinking, how do people learn? So I'll just share with you. I've written 4 books about study skills, cognitive development, and all this stuff. I got over 40 plus years, 45 years of thinking about this stuff. And you know the story about me, first in my med school class, student athlete here at Stanford, all this stuff. So I was great at school, all right? And I wasn't that good at school until I started learning all this stuff. So let's talk about it. A baby, learns from mama and dada. Every single thing you learn is based on connecting the new information to what you already know. So the baby, timing, how long does it take for mama and dada to come into the room to reach me? If they give me a baba, they hand me the baba, I drink the baba. Okay, so you just develop a scaffold in your mind of the information you already know, and then you just add things to it by associating with. This is like this is not like this. This is the opposite of this. That's how we learn everything. We learn faster from stories, from pictures, from people, especially if something emotionally is important to us, because that tells your brain, pay attention. If we see it as part of our sense of self, relevant to our future, all of that, it sticks in our memory. Because most stuff, we forget almost everything we encounter, and it has to be that way or our brain would be overwhelmed. You don't remember what you ate every day. You don't remember every step you take when you're walking. You remember things that matter. So you need to encounter things that matter to remember them. When a child's 3 to 5 years old, they explore the environment in the home. Homeschool is the best place with the parents if possible, older siblings and stuff. Montessori's okay, it's a lot better than preschool. For what it's worth, I was expelled out of 2 Montessoris. Never went to preschool. Learning, when you're about 6 to 12 years old, you go out for recess. Learning sports is a big deal, and learning your social skills as you communicate about the rules of the sports. No high school or grade school I've ever heard of anybody being taught study skills, but that's what parents should teach their child. It's the most important thing you can teach them, because it's how you're going to learn everything else. They should learn all this stuff, the basic techniques of word association, memory techniques, mnemonics, flashcards, walk and talk self-test, pre-reading before a difficult class, note-taking skills, all that stuff. Mnemonics, it's very valuable. It's like worth about 30 IQ points. And a lot of people, what I've seen is, a lot of young people, they become convinced they're stupid. And once they're convinced they're stupid, they're convinced that school doesn't matter for them, they don't care about schools, and then you can't teach them anything because they've given up. So the person has to have that, Carol Dweck mindset, the idea of a growth mindset. If I try and make an effort, I can improve. So you need to instill that in them as a parent, whatever way you can. They have to do something where they have a chance to succeed at, because if they're just overwhelmed, hold them back a grade or something. They got to get some sense of confidence in their own ability to learn for them to make the effort to try to learn more. Very valuable to learn how to draw. You'll be able to see things from a more objective perspective. And if you learn how to draw, you'll learn the history of art and you'll learn the history of Europe. They go together. You learn how to play piano or guitar, you will learn the history of music and thus the history of Europe. Okay? If you read for pleasure, you'll learn the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Bible, the history of Europe. That's all Western literature right there. And you can't really read Western literature in a sophisticated way if you don't know the Greeks, the Romans, and the Bible and some history of Europe. Okay? It really helps us to learn a lot if we have a role model who reads. For me, growing up, my father was my big role model. He was a student athlete. I wanted to be like him. I would watch these famous Victorian novels. They were made into movies. I'd watch them on BBC with my dad, Test of the D'Urbervilles or these other documentaries and stuff, and then I would try to read the book and discuss it with my father. I read all these Thomas Hardy books, Far from the Madding Crowd, The Mayor of Casterbridge, and of course Test of the D'Urbervilles, stuff like that. The Charles Dickens books and stuff, but I wasn't ready for all that stuff when I was young. And of course, I don't remember much of it, but I was great at spelling. I would win the spelling bee because I was reading all the time, even though I didn't truly understand the books. I wanted to be with my father. I wanted to watch the show. I wanted to talk with my dad about the book. So that was good. You should start reading, Bible stories. It can be children's versions initially, but you want that stuff sort of soaked into your brain. It's a platform to add everything else. And you can't read Western literature without knowing the Bible. I mean, you're just going to be clueless. And then when you learn history, learn it through biographies, and it'll all make sense. You don't need to memorize every little detail of ancient Greece. Just study Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, and you'll learn ancient Greece. Just study Cicero, you'll learn ancient Rome. Okay, and go with the flow. Reading for pleasure is great, because when you're reading for pleasure, you're making predictions about the book you enjoy. Like I said before, that 6th grade teacher, Donalyn Miller, she noticed the kids would read 2 books a year when it was forced on them, and they hated it and they forgot everything. But if she let them read whatever they want, just had them do a 5-minute book report, they'd read 42 books a year, and her kids were the dominant best students in every single subject. So I think that's how you build brain power. And you build learning, you build knowledge in a meaningful way. Ages of 13 to 22, you want to refine your study skills. Start getting more advanced with your condensed notes. You need knowledge management systems where you keep everything, let's say, on a word processor document. I used to initially keep it all in books in the margins, but nowadays with a computer it's easier to do. Make sure you back it up on a hard drive. And I call it a knowledge management system, so you can keep on adding information and keep on growing your knowledge in different topics. Like I would have a separate file for the history of Rome, the history of ancient Greece, the history of the Renaissance, the history of the Victorian era, the Belle Epoque, and whatnot. You should try to get into as many competitions as you can for academic stuff. The reason is it energizes you if you're going to be in a competition for a spelling bee, for a math competition. We used to have a JET society, Junior Engineering and Technical Society, to be in a debate competition, a writing competition. And by the way, I didn't do these things when I was young. I wished I had. But I had friends. I had friends that were valedictorians, and I wanted to compete with them. My senior year, I started sort of becoming more aware of school and education and learning. And I would play games with these guys. We'd play Risk, Stratego, stuff like that. And I'd be like, these guys, they all scored higher than me on the SAT, these guys. They were the best students in my high school. And I'm like, maybe I could be like them. I just got to read more. I got to get my act together. So it was good being around them. When I hung around with guys that were good students, I wanted to be a better student. When I hung around with wrestlers, I just thought about wrestling. But once I hung around with academic guys, I thought about academics. So all of these things build up your knowledge. You want to, do some investing, just small amounts. It'll get you to read about the stock market and learn about it, and you'll get a sense of how the business world works and doesn't work, and the games at play. Starting a business, again, with your parents, you can go broke. It doesn't matter. Reading and talking to people who help you accomplish your goal. That's great to have mentors in person, or just find them on the computer, YouTube channels and whatnot. And then decide to become a real expert in something and start focusing your reading on getting good at that topic. And you go through phases. As a guy, you're going to go through a phase where you want to learn how do you talk to women, because talking to women is totally different than talking to men, especially, from a romantic point of view. You have to learn how to play games, because they're always going to play games no matter what. So you have to be able to play the games, understand their games, etc. They're going to SHIT test you, so you have to know how to deal with that. And once you know how to deal with that, that makes you a better conversationalist. Because they're playing a game and they recognize that you recognize their game, then they think that's funny, and that's good. You'll basically start getting a sense of what you might want to be your career, and you're going to read deeper and deeper into those areas. And it's good to combine the reading with, going and experiencing things. Like if you're going to read about animals, evolution, or biology, all this other stuff, then go to the zoo or go somewhere else, okay? Grad school is when you focus more, the sense of purpose, on a more narrow topic, one major topic and everything connected to it. 29 to 40 years of age is when you start looking for a spouse, a wife, have kids, make some money. 40 to 60, become an expert in your field. The key to wealth is one house, one spouse. One time I was, my kid was in freshman year of high school or something, one of my kids, and he says to me, Dad, what's the most important thing to know for making money? And my wife, by the way, was watching the conversation while I'm talking to the kid. I said, don't have kids. And then my wife says, you're such a jerk. How could you talk that way to the kid? I go, oh yeah, and the other thing that's really important, don't get married. Anyways, after 60, you want to focus on how do you stay healthy. Anyways, I think the key point of this whole conversation is anything you're going to learn, you want to make it meaningful to yourself and connected to what you already know, decide why you want to know it, what you're going to use it for, because the more intelligible you make the thing, the more relevant you make the thing, the more likely you're going to hang on to it long term and you're going to understand it better. So I hope you found that helpful.